But let's go ahead and get started here with the 45, 45, 90 triangle. So as you guys know, inside any triangle, the sum of the interior angles have to be 180 degrees. So with a 45, 90, we're going to have two 45-degree angles because together those make 90, and then when you add that to the right angle, we get 180. So going back to kind of our Pythagorean theorem and our right triangle terminology, we have a hypotenuse and a leg. Now the hypotenuse is always going to be directly across from the right angle. Okay, I'm just going to label that with an H for right now. So that 90-degree angle, all right, is going to leave these other two to be 45. Now the other sides that make up that right angle, those are your legs. Okay, so that's a leg. And that's a leg. All right, two legs and a hypotenuse is what we have in every right triangle. So with a 45, 45, 90 triangle, there's this note here that I want you guys to remember, and that the legs of a 45, 45, 90 triangle are always going to be congruent. Because if they're opposite, these legs are across from these 45-degree angles. So they're going to be congruent because the angles across from them are congruent. So with our special triangles, okay, we always call the length of the legs x. Okay, let me slide my computer down a little bit. All right, we're going to call this length x. Now, depending on the triangle itself, x could be 10, x could be 4 million. I mean, there's an infinite number of possibilities that x could be, but we're always going to call the two legs x. And the hypotenuse, when we're talking about length, is going to be x times the square root of 2. Now these rules, or these dimensions, are going to help us figure out something about the length of the legs and hypotenuse if we're just given minimal information. So let's use this x and x square root of 2 to figure out some missing sides. All right, it says find the value of each variable. Looks like we've got an x and a y in each problem. Now all of these are right triangles. All of these are 45, 45, 90 triangles. So I'm going to label the other 45 in there because we know that our little box means our right angle. So then we have a 45-degree angle there. Now again, the legs in this type of triangle are always going to be congruent. So the sides that are across from the 45-degree angles, those are your legs, and they're going to be the exact same thing. So if this leg is 8, this leg also has to be 8, which means x is just 8. It's congruent with the other leg. Now the hypotenuse is going to be whatever that x variable is, okay? In this case, it's an 8. X times the square root of 2. So that means since y is our hypotenuse, then y is 8 times the square root of 2. Okay, now that would give us a decimal because the square root of 2 is not going to be a whole number, but we can just leave our answer like this. Our hypotenuse is 8 times the square root of 2, and we've solved both of those. Now let's move on to the second example, which obviously, like I said, is a 45, 45, 90 triangle, just like example 3. So let's see what we're given. We are not given our hypotenuse. We just know that's x. When you're given a picture like this, don't confuse the x you're solving for with the x that is in the rule, okay? So our hypotenuse is just labeled with the variable x. This could be an r, this could be a t, this could be a c, any variable. This is just representing the unknown. So our hypotenuse is x times the square root of 2, but not this x, okay? The other thing we need to find is y, which is one of our two legs. Again, across from the 45-degree angles are going to be congruent sides. So if this leg is 25, then this leg would also have to be 25 because they're congruent. So that side labeled with a y is 25. Now x is our hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse in this type of triangle is your leg times the square root of 2. So our legs are 25, so we're going to call the hypotenuse 25 times the square root of 2, which again would give us a decimal. Okay, let's do our last 45, 45, 90 example. Okay, we are given, let me see Here are the sides opposite of our 45-degree angles. So our hypotenuse is given to us. Our hypotenuse is 19. Oops. Now 19, since that's our hypotenuse, is x times the square root of 2. Okay? 19 isn't the x. 19 equals all of this. Okay? What we have to find are the two legs. So x is a leg and the y variable is on a leg. And since we have this type of triangle, these two answers are going to be the same because they're congruent sides. So what we have to figure out is, how did it get to 19? So 19 is the hypotenuse. So 19 is x times the square root of 2. Now, if we were just solving this for x, like a one-step equation, what would we do? Well, we'd have to get rid of this square root of 2, which means we would divide by it on both sides. Okay, we're solving for x. Now, this doesn't mean the final answer, x, is that, but at least we know that x equals 19 over the square root of 2. Now, the problem with what we just got is that we have a square root symbol in the denominator. And as you'll find out probably in, let's see, I'm assuming Algebra 2 and definitely your upper level trig class, is we can't have a square root symbol down there in the denominator. So we have to get rid of it, but we can't just erase it and call it a day. So here's how you get rid of a radical that's in the denominator. All right, we're gonna multiply. Now I'm running out of room, so I'll have to start writing up here, but we're gonna multiply the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 2. Okay, so when you have in your numerator 19 times the square root of 2, you just write that. Let's see, let's draw an arrow up here. Okay, you just write that as 19 times the square root of 2. There's nothing else you can do with that. But down here, the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 would give you the square root of 4. Now the square root of 4 is a nice easy whole number. So this again is in the denominator. So the square root of 4 is 2. So we're going to write this all over 2. Okay, so what we did there is we took what we were given as the hypotenuse, which was 19, and we set that equal to what we were told in the rule, and that the hypotenuse in a 45, 45, 90 triangle is always x times the square root of 2. So we set 19 equal to that, and then we solved for x, which ended up being 19 times the square root of 2 divided by 2. Now, when we first started this problem, we figured out that these two variables, x and y, are our congruent legs. So they're going to be the same exact measure. And that measure is 19 times the square root of 2 divided by 2. Oops, just broke my pencil. Okay. All right, so that's our examples for, like I said, the 45, 45, 90 triangles. Now let's talk about one more type, okay, which is the 30, 60, 90 triangles. So these rules or these dimensions are going to be the same for every 30, 60, 90 triangle, okay? So we've got 3 things to remember as opposed to just 2 things because our legs are not going to be congruent anymore. We're going to have a shorter leg and a longer leg. Now make sure you write down this note because it says the shorter leg is always opposite of the 30-degree angle and the longer leg is always going to be across from the 60-degree angle. Of course, we've got our 90 indicated with the little box, but since our 30-degree angle in our picture is up here, then that means down here across from it, this is the shorter leg. Okay, I'm going to call that SL for right now. Our 60-degree angle is here, which means across from it, that is our longer leg. Okay, and this is still our hypotenuse. I'm going to pause for just a second and sharpen my pencil because I think I heard it break. I don't want to stop the video and pause it because then I'd have to start a new one and then post 2 videos for you. So let me just get this sharpened again. I'm really roughing it over here with a manual hand sharpener or pencil sharpener. Don't have my electrical one for my classroom. So, all right, I think we're good. With a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the shorter leg is always going to be represented by x. the longer leg is always going to be represented by x times the square root of 3. And the hypotenuse is always going to be 2 times x. So whatever the shorter leg is, you just double it, and that's the length of your hypotenuse. Okay, so let's look at these examples because there's just a little bit more to take into consideration. Okay, for example 4, we obviously have a 30, 60, 90 because you see this 60 degrees down here, which means up here must be our 30-degree angle. So across from it, this is going to be our shorter leg, and across from the 60 is going to be our longer leg. So I'm going to write L for longer, S for shorter. And then, of course, across from our right angle, we have our hypotenuse. So let's figure out x and y. We are asked to find the dimensions of the longer leg and the hypotenuse. Well, the hypotenuse is just twice the length of the shorter leg. Our shorter leg, in this case, is 5. So that means our hypotenuse is 2 times 5, which is 10. Okay, now we just have to find the longer leg. The longer leg is the shorter leg, x, times the square root of 3. So if the shorter leg is 5, our longer leg is 5 times the square root of 3. And we found our dimensions. Let's look at our next 30, 60, 90. So our 60-degree angle is going to be here because we are given the 30 and the 90. All right, what we have to find, since this is across from the 60-degree angle, this is the longer leg, and our 30-degree angle is across from the shorter leg, making this x variable the hypotenuse. Okay, so again, hypotenuse is 2 times the length of the shorter leg. If the shorter leg is 14, then that means the hypotenuse is 28. Now let's figure out y. Y is on the length of the longer leg, which again, the longer leg is the shorter times the square root of 3. Well, the shorter leg is 14, so our longer leg is 14 times the square root of 3. Okay, next up is this right triangle, which we're given the 30 that's labeled in the picture, so let's label our 60. All right, this is going to be our shorter leg across from the 30. This is going to be our longer leg across from the 60. And 32 is our hypotenuse. So what we're asked to find is x and y, which are the shorter and longer legs. Okay, so our shorter leg is just x. Okay, well, we don't know what x is, but we do know that the hypotenuse is 32, and the hypotenuse is twice the length of the shorter leg. Well, what's 32 split in half? You get 16. So our shorter leg is 16. All right, let's figure out the longer leg. Again, longer leg is the shorter times the square root of 3. So we're going to put that 16 times the square root of 3. Okay, let's do 3 more examples of these. So I've got 6 examples of 30, 60, 90, and then 3 examples of our 45, 45, 90. And then we'll cut this video after this and call it a day on the notes. All right, so number 7, we are labeled with a 60 degree and a 90 degree. So there's our 30, which means this side is the shorter leg, this side is the longer leg, and this side is the hypotenuse. All right, we are asked to find x and y, which are the shorter and longer leg. All right, so our hypotenuse, again, is twice the length of the shorter leg. So if the hypotenuse is 46, then that means the shorter leg is half of that, which is 23. Oops. Okay, so shorter leg's 23, and our longer leg is x. The longer leg is the shorter times the square root of 3. So 23 times the square root of 3. All right, we're going to have a little bit more solving to do here in number 8, just like we had to do in number 3 for the 45, 45, 90. All right, let's label our picture here. We've got our 30 degree angle must be up here, which means this is the shorter leg, this is the longer leg, and that's the hypotenuse. Okay, well, we know the longer leg is 20. Okay, but we need to know the shorter. Okay, and we need to know our hypotenuse. So if our hypotenuse is just labeled with x right now, well, that's twice the shorter leg, but we don't know the shorter leg right now. We do know that this 20 on the longer leg should be equal to the shorter leg times the square root of 3. So let's do what we did in example 3. Set it equal to x square root of 3. Okay, 20 equals x times the square root of 3. Now act like we're solving for x here. We want to get x by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by the square root of 3. Canceling that out over there. And x is 20 divided by the square root of 3. But we can't have a radical in the denominator, so we have to get rid of that as well. We can't just erase it, even though that would be nice and easy. We have to do the opposite, which is multiply. So we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 3. Okay, giving us 20 times the square root of 3 divided by, if we do square root of 3 times square root of 3, that's square root of 9. 3 times 3 is 9. What's the square root of 9? 3. So all of that down there is square root of 3. Okay, so if this is what our longer leg is, okay, the longer leg is x times the square root of 3. Okay, so our shorter leg is just x. Okay, the shorter leg is x, the longer leg is x times square root of 3. Well, we just solved for x. We just solved x to be this. So I'm going to write this next to y, because y is our shorter. 20 times the square root of 3 divided by 3. All right, well, our longer leg, our hypotenuse is the other thing we're finding, which is labeled with the variable x. The hypotenuse is twice the shorter leg. Well, we just solved the shorter leg to be this. So if we took this term right here and multiplied it by 2, that would just change it to 40. All right, let me draw a little line separating this here. 40 times the square root of 3 all over 3. Sorry, I had to cram that in there, but this answer is 40 square root of 3 over 3. Okay, lots to do in that one. Let's do one more example. Okay, we've got a 30, 60, 90, which means this is our 60-degree angle over here. So this is the shorter leg, this is the longer leg, and this is our hypotenuse. Okay, so what are we asked to find? Well, we're asked to find the shorter leg and the hypotenuse. What we're given here is that the longer leg is 9 square root of 3. Okay, well, if the longer leg is 9, or is supposed to be x square root of 3, all right, well, that's just the shorter leg times the square root of 3. Well, if we're told that it's 9 times the square root of 3, then the shorter leg must be 9. Shorter leg times the square root of 3. Our hypotenuse is 2 times the shorter leg. And the shorter leg we just determined to be 9. So 2 times 9 is 18. So this was given to us kind of already in the format we wanted to see it, times the square root of 3. So our number was given to us in the picture.